still following us?
Yes.
Does he have just one hand on the steering wheel?
Mm-hmm.
When you hear something that sounds like a gunshot, drive.
Hello, welcome to What the Flick. It is so good to be back. I am Christy. This is Matt. That is Alonzo. We're talking about The Man from U.N.C.L.E, which I guess was a TV show.
Yes. Man from U.N.C.L.E was a TV show. There's a new version in theaters, which also is pretty much the movie version of GQ. High fashion, excellent suits worn by Henry Cavill, who plays a character named Napoleon Solo, who is a CIA agent who used to be a master thief. He gets teamed up with a Russian agent to solve some big mystery. Let's watch the clip.
This is the most dangerous time in our history. We recently discovered an international criminal organization with an atom bomb.
We have no choice but to work together on this.
You ought to investigate Victoria Vinciguerra.
America teaming up with Russia. That doesn't sound very friendly.
Obviously, I was briefed about your criminal background. Your balls are at the end of a very long leash held by a very short man.
Special Forces, KGB, the youngest man to join, in fact, and their best within 3 years. I do wonder if it was your father's shame that gave you such drive, though. Or was it your mother's reputation? I understand that she was extremely popular amongst your father's friends. See you tomorrow.
The plot is, stop me if I get this wrong, a stealth attack on the island from the sea. The rest is up to you.
The thing is, I work better alone.
I work better alone too. What is that?
Super hardened boron sharpened with a CO2 laser.
CO2 laser.
Coming?
So you're a thief. I hope you wear a mask.
Sometimes. Just never when I'm stealing things.
What's my cover?
I'm your fiancé. Congratulations.
Told you, we're teaming up with the Russians. Doesn't get any more Russian than the Red Peril here.
Uncle.
So I knew nothing about this. I don't think you have to know anything
No.
about this.
No.
It's just super fun and stylish and like all the best of what Guy Ritchie can do in one place.
Totally, yeah. I had never, for some reason, Man from U.N.C.L.E. was not a show that got rerun a lot when I was a kid. So
No.
I never
Not
have.
like Gilligan's Island.
Exactly.
When they make that movie, I'm all over it.
For instance, yeah. So I've never seen an episode of the original show. I like that they decided to keep this period and sort of still make it very kind of Cold War era. And, you know, it's like when you're watching Mad Men and you think, oh, everything just looked better then, you know? So when Alicia Vikander comes out wearing these like amazing sort of, you know, couture sundresses with the giant sunglasses and the big hat, you're like, yeah, more of this, please,
yes.
you know?
And I don't care that there's no substance to it. I read some review where it's like, no one cares about the plot. I'm like, I don't care about the plot either. It's not about the plot. It's about how stylish and fun and slick and beautifully edited it is.
Yeah, and you just know that the actual show had that similar level of like, well, we have to send them somewhere and they have to chase a thing. So it's about that level of storytelling that you would get on like a TV spy show. But yeah, but who cares?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of fun chemistry between Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer, I think. Alicia Vikander is fun. Elizabeth Debicki from Great Gatsby makes a great villainess.
She's like an evil Paris Hilton.
Kinda.
Kind of redundant, though, right?
Oh.
She's a more evil Paris Hilton. She looks just like her.
I'll tell you, this is a very high compliment. She was reminding me of Tilda Swinton in Edward II.
Okay.
Like being like a
the
super badass villain and like always rocking some amazing, you know, just sleek outfit. Yeah, so this is a spy movie that you go to for the clothes mostly.
But also like the chases
Sure.
and the little details of how the subterfuge and how they get from one place to another, and it's very, very well thought out. Like, I know I'm not a fan of Guy Ritchie's more recent stuff, like the Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah.
This reminds me of like the snap and the fizz and like the beautifully, meticulously detailed editing of like Snatch.
You know, this one made me think there's a lot of movies that happened in the 60s that were knockoffs of James Bond, right?
Right.
There's that Matt Helm series, which, let's be honest, is pretty terrible,
Yeah.
right?
The
Starring Dean
ones,
Martin.
yeah.
This movie felt like it was between something like Thunderball and maybe Our Man Flint, right? The James Coburn movies, which are definitely spoofs and don't take themselves very seriously at all. This one kind of occupies the space in between those two.
Sure.
And I thought it really worked. The plot is not really all that deep. You know, there's enough action that it moves along. It's consistent within what it's doing. And I like this. It kind of has all of the best things that Guy Ritchie does, right? Like, it moves fast, it's well edited, it keeps you interested, it never lingers in anything too long that you get really bored.
And unlike the Sherlock Holmes movies, like the camera movements aren't the joke.
Right.
You know, like I felt like in Sherlock Holmes, he's underscoring everything with these crazy whip pans and undercranks, and and it gets kind of tiring after a while. And this one, I think he sort of respects the material and lets it play out the way that a 60s movie would have. And you're right, it's less of a 007 movie than kind of a shout out to all the great 007 knockoffs and parodies and whatever of that era, which Man from U.N.C.L.E. was one of them.
But plays it a bit more straight than a lot of those, right? It's probably closer to, for those people that know the series, it's closer to like the first season of Man from U.N.C.L.E. where they were playing relatively straight, whereas later seasons they went for camp. And this doesn't have a lot of camp in it, but it still feels kind of light. I like this a lot.
Yeah, it's not Austin Powers.
Right.
It's not. I would say that maybe there are some moments that kind of border on parody. Though.
Sure.
It's very knowing.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with the interplay, as you mentioned, between Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer. There are some beautiful scenes where they just talk about clothing. Right? Like, the movie, like, we're all looking at the clothes, and they at least have decency to acknowledge that we're all acknowledging the clothes. They have a good time with sort of traditional male gender roles while still staying like very commanding and very, very confident. Yeah.
Let's talk accent bingo, because this movie stars a Brit as an American as a Russian, a Swede as a German, and an Australian as an Italian.
Okay, and Hugh Grant as Hugh Grant.
Yeah, Hugh Grant as Hugh Grant, and Jared Harris, who is Welsh-Irish, also playing an American.
You know what, though? I speak some Russian, and I usually am very sensitive to when they are hunting moose and squirrel, and it was not like that, I don't think, with Armie Hammer. It seemed kind of understated to me a little bit. I'm also a big Armie Hammer fan, as you guys may know.
So if you've always wanted to see Superman and the Lone Ranger in the same movie, wearing great suits, this is the film.
And first act,
and Ex Machina.
lots of gay subtext in the first act that they then kind of abandoned.
I mean, really? Like, besides them talking about clothes?
The
fighting in a
bathroom
men's
scene?
Right.
Right.
Oh, yes, there's a couple of men's bathroom scenes.
Yeah,
yes.
there's a couple scenes where you're like, where is this going?
I will say, if I have some qualms here, there's, I think, one scene that could have been really great that Ritchie decides to do off camera, which is the sort of like tussle between Vikander and Armie Hammer,
right? Which
is very much like they tease it very heavily in the trailers and the ads, and then you really don't see anything. It all happens behind a door.
But then you had the laugh of the maid's reaction.
No, sure. I mean, it's still funny, but I thought that could have been like a cool moment. And then later in the film, there is a death that is kind of grisly that they play off for laughs, which didn't feel true to either the tone of the original show, not the original show, but just the sort of 60s milieu in general, or even of just the one that the movie has created up to that point. But it felt like this sudden moment of like Guy Ritchie being kind of a sadist, and it was like, it's not.
But the punchline has to do with clothing.
True.
So there's a bit of consistency there, perhaps,
yes.
right?
But it kind of stood out like a sore thumb for me.
Okay, so it's fun, it's light, it's breezy. It's actually, given that it's late August or mid-August, it's like surprisingly great. Totally. So what's your number then, please?
I said 7.8.
I give it a 7.
I also say 7.8, so our average is a 7.5. It is where in Tomatoland?
69 on the tomato meter right now.
Okay, but it's better than that, you guys. Don't listen to film critics. They don't know anything, right? Thanks.
You say on the show full of critics.
I know. That's irony. Bye. Have fun. Bye.